thank you so much for being here. I'm actually going to start with a formality with the GAR Southwest MLS Antitrust Compliance Policy, and we will be reading it in its entirety. So the GAR Southwest MLS Antitrust Compliance Policy applies to officers, directors, employees, and members of GAR. This policy requires that such individuals be familiar and fully comply with all applicable federal and state antitrust laws and in all dealings on behalf of GAR Southwest MLS. This is going to be long, so I apologize, but I'll try to go fast. GAR facilities will not be used by any officer, director, employee, committee, or member in connection with any anti-competitive or unlawful purpose or unreasonable restraint of trade. Conduct expressly prohibited includes the following. A, any discussion or effort to directly or indirectly fix, peg, stabilize, raise, lower, or affect prices on commissions, products, advertising, or credit terms. B, any discussion of real estate commission or other fees or specific non-price business practices of any particular members, except in the context of professional standards proceedings. This limitation shall not extend to discussions of methods of operation, maintenance, and similar matters in which cost or efficiency is merely incidental. C, any discussion or effort by or among any members, non-members, or competitors to eliminate or limit competition, to divide or allocate territories or customers, or to limit the nature of business carried on, or products or services sold or to be sold. D, any discussions or efforts to engage in any group boycott or concerted refusals to deal. E, any discussions or effort to injure or disparage the business or trade of anyone. And finally, if a topic is raised which appears to involve a violation of the antitrust compliance policy at any formal or informal GAR or Southwest MLS meeting, anyone in attendance has the right and all have the duty to intercept and demand that the discussion be stopped. Those in charge of the meeting are responsible for seeing that this policy is enforced so that the prohibited conduct is stopped immediately. If the prohibited conduct persists, those responsible persons shall terminate the discussion, cancel the remainder of the meeting, and refer the matter to the president and or GAR legal counsel for further action to ensure compliance with the antitrust compliance policy. Okay, we're done. So, all right. I'll read it faster next time. All right, so thank you so much for having me. I'm your 2025 GAR president, and welcome to the first Wednesday for an annual update from the New Mexico Real Estate Commission. Today's presentation is hosted by the LEAP committee, but before we start, we have somebody super important and special here. His name is Ryan Sweeney, and he's our new GAR CEO. So. And I'll tell you a little bit more about why I think he's such a special guy. But Ryan brings a wealth of experience in real estate leadership, advocacy, and association management, both at a local level and a state level. Ryan has led as the AE, which is a CEO, and then also CEO at the state level. So that's really impressive. He joins GAR from Lincoln, Nebraska, where he served, as I said, as the CEO both locally and at the state level, leading over 5,500 members. Prior to that, he was an AE locally at the Western Magic Valley Realtors in Twin Falls, Idaho. With over 20 years in the real estate industry, Ryan has a strong reputation for fostering member engagement, driving financial growth, and shaping public policy to support real estate professionals. Now, a couple other things that you, unless you looked at his LinkedIn and know about him specifically, you might not know this, but you know how sometimes we're like, hey guys, we're not curing cancer here, right? I mean, we're selling houses, and that's very important, and that's cool. Well, there's one of us up here that was actually working on curing cancer. This guy. So most people wouldn't know that, but he has his undergrad in biology, and then he was pursuing his PhD literally to cure cancer. So super smart guy. I'm just so impressed with him. But Ryan, welcome to GAR.
Shane, thank you. And if I were actually curing cancer, I would still be there. So I love learning. And so that's one of the things you guys will learn about me is I'm just an eternal student. And so if I don't know something, I will try to research it. I'll try to understand it. I'll try to sit down with you guys and learn about GAR, what made this a great place for so long, and how can we continue that, and how can we improve it in the future. It's an honor to be here. I won't take long because we have a very important speaker coming up soon, if I point to the right direction. But please, my door's always open, and I love real estate. So grew up in a real estate family, second generation realtor, list and sold real estate. That's what led me to this career choice. And I'm honored to be here. So thank you all. Please come see me and get to know me.
Thanks, Ryan. And just to brag on this guy a little bit more, it's not like he was just doing a little bit of real estate, a house here or there. Realtor of the Year, right? Yeah, so this total rock star in everything he does. So super proud to have him. But now I'd like to introduce you to your LEAP chair, Christine Marin Taylor.
Good morning, everyone. I was just thinking after listening, we should have like a pirate day and we'll say, "Gar." Okay, sorry. Okay, so thank you, Shane, and welcome, Ryan. Today, the LEAP Committee presents Linda DeVlieg Killman, who will share an update from the NMREC. So Linda is a seasoned realtor, former SWMLS director, and NMREC president. She brings a wealth of experience and dedication to her roles in both real estate and regulatory oversight. Originally drawn to the position by the unexpected call from the governor, Linda seized the opportunity to utilize her extensive experience as a realtor, offering insights and perspectives that enrich the commission's deliberations and decisions. Beyond her professional endeavors, Linda leads a fulfilling life with her husband, Max, after an impressive 28 years of courtship. Please welcome Linda.
Hello, hello. Oh, good. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for asking me here for this. I am the president for the second year, thank you, of the New Mexico Real Estate Commission, second term. I think they just decided to keep me doing it because they didn't want to get their private lives messed up. But anyway, it's been a struggle, as you've probably heard, with our administratively attached regulation and licensing department. Please understand that we have some great employees at RLD that are continuing to do really good work. So I support them totally and wholeheartedly. We're still facing some uphill battles with the leadership at RLD, and I'm hoping we can come to an understanding. That being said, don't you love it when people say that being said? The mission of the New Mexico Real Estate Commission is to protect the public and enhance the professional competence of real estate brokers. The New Mexico Real Estate Commission was created by state law in 1959 and charged with enforcing the real estate license law and the Real Estate Commission rules. So I'm going to introduce the commissioners as we have them now. President Linda DeVlieg Killman. Vice President Matthew Smith, he comes from Hobbs area. He is a qualifying broker and runs his own real estate companies and car washes. And so if you ever catch him on Facebook, he gives a great view of his car wash business. He's really quite the entrepreneur. Secretary is Connie Henniga. She's from Las Cruces. She's also a qualifying broker. Our professional member, Alina Katanak, who's from Santa Fe, and our public member, Eric Vasquez. The commission is made up of 5 members, 4 of who are licensees at some level, and a public member is required who has never served with a real estate license. So that's where Mr. Vasquez comes in. Our current challenges are with communication changes. I know you all love that one-stop phone number to get a hold of somebody at RLD. We love it too, and so we're trying to change that. All of these changes are taking time, but we have found some backdoor methods of getting through to the right people so that hopefully these communications can flow easier than before. The universal form is another favorite. That's a real crowd stopper. I know you love the universal form. It's so understandable. And it started out being pretty good, but somebody got their hands on it and really messed with it. And so now Connie Hennigan and I have joined together to correct these forms. So we're passing them between each other and then passing them over to somebody else for some scrutiny to see if we can improve that process. We don't want 10 forms, but maybe 2 or 3 that are more understandable so that when y'all are trying to get your license, transfer your ABs into a new QB, change your address, that was a good one, that we can actually get that done. The staff doesn't want it to be confusing. They would love to touch your file once, maybe twice, and get you moving. So we're trying to make that happen. The investigator changes are also really great. We now have no investigators that are specialized in real estate. The investigators throughout all of the boards and commissions are being shared across all the boards and commissions. So the accounting investigators, people investigating accounting, are also investigating decorators and nursing, pharmacy, body art, home inspectors. So nothing about that makes sense, but we're having to deal with it as we can. And the definition of administratively attached, which of course was presented by RLD's chief counsel at the last commission meeting, which we're still debating with the Department of Justice and them as to what that really means. It's kind of a vague definition that everybody probably pretty much thought we all understood. So that's one of the basic problems and challenges. That'll be $10 for the Realtor Fund, $10. So one of the challenges is that RLD has their definition of administratively attached, meaning how much control do they have over the commissions and the boards, and what we think our definition is. Our legal counsel is the Department of Justice, the Attorney General's office. So they have their counsel, we have ours. So right now we're debating that issue. If we could get that clear, we could probably get a lot of these things changed. The 2025 plans, right there, rules. Rules changes usually happen once a year, but right now we don't have an executive secretary who is experienced enough to assist in that process. The request has been put out to the registrar to get clean copies of the rules so that we can start our redlining process. We've talked and talked and talked and talked about them for a long time. So we are ready to start the process, which is called redlining. From there, it goes into discussions, to approvals, to the Department of Justice, back again, legal opinions. But I haven't gotten those clean copies yet, so now I've got some other avenues to approach to get those clean copies so that we can start that. Along with those rules changes, one of the things that I did request at the agenda requested at the last meeting was to get that PDF of that rule book uploaded to the website, and it's that close to happening. There haven't been any rule changes, so there's not that much to do on it. The budget is another big one. We would really like to have a very understandable budget produced to us from RLD, a very vague idea of our budget, which pays for instructors and initiatives was presented to us. So we're still working on trying to understand it. Licensing, and that goes along with the staff working on licensing procedures, which goes along with the forms that hopefully will make those licensing procedures easier. Education initiatives, which I'll go into, and more. And then there's more. So the structure of the New Mexico Real Estate Commission, you've got regulation and licensing that flows into the New Mexico Real Estate Commission, and from there we have administrative staff and the commission. The next level is the New Mexico Attorney General, which runs through the commission council, litigation, which we deal with, and then back up again to the administrative staff and the commission. So there's lots of levels of confusion as to how we all work, but it is a bureaucracy we try to manage. So here we are with the New Mexico Real Estate Commission. I named all of the current members of the board. Each one of these individuals has to be from a different county, resident of the state for 3 years. As I stated before, 4 are professional members and 1 is a public member. We serve 5-year terms. There have been commissioners that serve 8 years, 10 years, or longer. So it just depends. When you get a new governor, sometimes you get new commissioners, or not. Our primary responsibility includes issuance, renewal, and transfer of real estate broker licenses, establishment and enforcement of real estate broker pre-licensing and continuing education requirements, certification of providers of real estate broker education, investigation and adjudication of complaints about potential and actual violations of the real estate license law and commission rules, education of consumers and real estate brokers about the real estate license law and commission rules. Again, we primarily are focused on protecting the public, but we're also focused on increasing professionalism among licensees. So I think those go hand in hand. I think you can best serve your customers, your clients, just by a better level of professionalism, which probably turns into better income and a better business model. So here's how the complaint system works. A complaint is submitted online. Anybody can file a complaint. Nothing is turned away. So we have to hear everything that comes through the system. Once that complaint is submitted, it's assigned to an investigator. That investigator will do their due diligence, request all sorts of things in writing. It's basically a legal investigation. They'll contact all the parties. Sometimes those files get pretty large. After that complaint is fully vetted, if you will, investigated, we have a complaint committee, which RLD suggested we have, which is one of the commissioners does meet with the investigators after the investigation is completed. And if that investigator has a question regarding this particular case, then that complaint committee individual will give their recommendation. It's not a final decision, or they'll recommend that we really talk about a certain element in closed session, or request further investigation. So if that complaint committee individual determines that there's one more piece of evidence that they need, or did you ask for this file, or did you ask for this piece of paper, then they'll go back and do that. Once it's fully investigated, then it's presented to the Real Estate Commission at our regularly scheduled meeting in what's called closed session. So if you've ever attended one of our meetings, then we go into closed session, which means there's no public members there except for people who are authorized to be in the room. It's not done with Robert's rules. It's just an open discussion about, here's the case, here's how it went, this was a recommendation or not by the complaint committee, how do you all feel about it? So it's very much a open discussion, give and take. In some cases can take a long time to talk about. Others are clearly not in our jurisdiction, but we hear them anyway. You know, like the carpet cleaner didn't get paid, so he filed a complaint with the Real Estate Commission. Well, that's pretty simple. But we look at all aspects of it. And what's important to know is that we don't know who is being talked about. We don't know where it is, and we don't know who it is that's being investigated at that moment. So it's all very, very above board when it comes to making these decisions. And there's different levels of adjudication, if you will. We can decide an advisory letter. That's just like don't do this again. There's a letter of reprimand, which does become part of the file and then becomes public. There's pre-NCAs, which is if you pay this, if you take some education, and if you do this, we'll call it a day. Now, if you don't do that, then it goes into an NCA, which is called a Notice of Contemplated Action, and that's where it starts moving up into the legal channels, which can ultimately turn into suspension. So that's the process. Some of these closed sessions go for hours. When I first got on the commissions, we were doing a lot of cleanup, I guess, from the pandemic era of these things building up, and there were times we were there till 5 o'clock, and then it was all online, so it was more exhausting than being in person. So the commission decides on the action, and after we make our recommendations, we take them back into the public session, so we'll come back on, and hardly anybody's ever attending those moments, but you can, and the secretary will read out all of the recommendations for these cases. Then they go back and the parties are notified right after that decision is made. Licensing. IndentGo is still used for fingerprinting. You don't have to get fingerprinted if you're renewing your license, if you're upgrading your license, but always when you're getting your license. I guess they decided that fingerprints don't change, so they made it easier. It's used for associate brokers, qualifying brokers, or if you're adding to your license, if you're getting more than one license. Licensing data, and numbers are provided from RLD and Salesforce, so take that as you will, but here's the number of licenses, and keep in mind there's real estate licensees and then there's realtors, and so that's about half licensees are actual realtors. So right now there's 3,556 qualifying brokers, 266 inactive, which means you've still got the license, but you've decided to go into the referral department, which I think is a brilliant thing to do. Don't ever give up your license. I think it's just hang on to it and make referrals. Expired licenses, 833, and we've had 11 revoked or suspended licenses. Associate brokers are 6,867. Inactive is 1,235 associate brokers. Expired 295, and 10 associate brokers revoked or suspended. That's for January. So there's actually been, and if I can believe this data, which again, grain of salt, but there does seem to be a decline in new licenses for the month of January compared to the month of January in 2024. I don't know what to make of that just yet. I want to get some more figures towards the 6-month mark to see if people are really not interested in getting into real estate or if there's just a lull in the process because of our procedures in place. New education. I'm excited about this one because some of, same old classes that you're required to take, but I like to see new classes. So, and by the way, Jen Cody, if you all know Jen Cody, if you don't, get a hold of me, I'll get you in touch. She's the chair of the EAC. She's looking for more people to join in with the education, what's it called? EAC, Education Advisory Committee, thank you. So she's looking for volunteers for that. Sit down, listen to, approve instructors, approve classes. So these are just some of the new classes coming up. Conversational Intelligence Unleashed. I like that one. Goal setting in 5 simple steps. Navigating AI in real estate marketing. I think that's going to be a really good one. And NMREC complaints, prevent them or defend them. More classes as well, but that one's being taught, I think, by one of my favorite prior instructor, now new instructor again. And he knows a lot about NMREC complaints. So we've got new instructors coming up, or we've got instructors coming back into the education department that had not been there for a while. The forums. So this is what I don't know if you've logged into this, but this is the real estate website area of the Real Estate Commission. This is where you look for your licensing, your registration, your renewal forms. Those renewal forms make no sense right there at all. So we're trying to fix that. It's also where you can look up a license, right up there. And right now, by the way, you can actually see where that QB or AB actually resides with their license. It doesn't give a whole lot more information, not like the old website did, but more than when it was rolled out. Down here at the very bottom, that's always a good one. Click here for a list of criminal convictions that could disqualify an applicant. Just because you're a criminal, it doesn't automatically disqualify you, but there are a list of criminal convictions that possibly could. Don't click that. Because knowledge is everything. Once you know, you have to disclose it, right, Sandy? Don't go there. So here's the licensing guide. It's available on the commission website. It's included in email notices. It's designed to help you, help you assist with the help desk. Application paths. Don't do paper applications. I spoke to somebody in licensing yesterday because it's all got to be online now. So paper applications are going to be rejected and they'll have to hand you back your check and they're not going to hold it. The whole package has to go back and you start over again. So do the online application. Don't contact the help desk. No, seriously, try. Okay. So this is the licensing portal. And be sure you have a fresh login. I notice every time I log into this, it'll change my password. It kind of rolls it around and you have to start over. But this is where you search for licenses. You can apply for a license. You can file a complaint. So if you have a consumer that wants to file a complaint, you can guide them to that. License verification request. Or if you want to purchase a list of licensees, you can also do it there. I think it's $50, but I'm not sure. But you can purchase a list of all the licensees. Not too sure how fast you'll get it because I did mine. I haven't gotten it yet. But anyway, application processes. Complete applications are approved within 3 business days. Most are within 1 when submitted electronically with all the information. I can tell you I did my QB upgrade And I missed a couple things. They immediately told me exactly what I needed. Christine, she's the license guru. And once I got her things, she was even working on a Sunday night to make sure that I got things corrected. But you got to really listen to what they're asking for, because I know that there's been some people that have said, oh, I gave them everything they're asking for, and then I've personally gone back to the licensing secretary and said, what exactly happened here? And there's always kind of something that got mistranslated, misunderstood. For instance, E&O insurance might be an expired policy. Don't ever let that happen, but don't give them an old one. So make sure you're keeping things in a document that you can tell it's for this appropriate year. Missing the wall license. And did you know that if you have a virtual office, a virtual brokerage, you have to have a website that can display the licenses on that virtual website. Well, that's redundant, a website. So if you have a virtual brokerage, those licenses have to be displayed on that website. It's the statute. Or a missing transfer authorization form that's been signed. I think I submitted mine without being signed, which, you know, they're like, come on. So I had to send it to Alice, and she signed it right away. But everything has to be signed appropriately. Or there's not the correct CE certificates. We do, there is an audit of all of the, am I buzzing backwards, kind of? There is an audit of all the CE that's submitted, so you gotta make sure everything is perfectly done. We have tried to get that program that was approved at one time called CE Broker. It was this marvelous program where everything could be organized, and it went away. But we're trying to get it back or something similar, but just try to keep a good online organized system, whatever your system looks like, that's the best one to use if you're using it, and just keep track of everything in one folder electronically. I know if you take classes here, this website does a great job of telling you what you've taken. And so go to that resource. Try to do your audits on your own every year. Just make sure at the end of the year, when you're putting your taxes together and all that fun stuff, put your licensing checklist in there as well. There is a licensing checklist that you can get and use. Or they're missing the new broker business practices. That was a big surprise moment when you think you've taken all the class that you possibly need to take, and then this thing pops up and you haven't taken new broker business practices. So that's something you have to take within your first year of your new license. You got to show up and do it again. So don't forget that one. Oh, this is the fun part. No, your new license. So if you're brand new, not you. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm buzzing. Okay. I'm used to the commission microphone, so yeah, thank you. Broker bees, these are the fun part, brought to you by popular demand. We're going to look at a couple examples of what a broker bee looks like. A broker bee is a complaint that comes to us in a format that we read. These are always delivered to us, probably 4 days before a commission meeting, and you privately escape into your home office or your office and lock the door because you don't want anybody talking or reading or knowing about what you're reading. You're reading these complaints, and they come to you in official format, and everything is redacted, and it lays out the investigator's report to what they've investigated. So let's see, we're going to do the tree. Oh, yes. Property buyer discovered a tree. Case summary, broker B. The key issue is that a property buyer discovered a tree located near the property line during a final walkthrough. The buyer inquired whether the tree was their responsibility. The respondent, which is the broker, replied no, based on a plat map and information from the city. We've all been there. The buyer closed on the property, relying on respondent A's information and the closing broker's assumption that the city was responsible for the tree, because that's what they were told. The buyer contacted the city to arrange the tree removal and was informed the tree was on their property, making it their responsibility. The buyer sent respondent A a $4,876 tree removal invoice. Why not? He said it was not my problem. Consulted respondent B, there's always A and B, there's always the associate broker and the qualifying broker, who suggested the buyer should have confirmed the tree's responsibility before closing. So the investigator looked at the findings, and the text messages confirmed that the broker, I'll just call him broker from now on, assured the buyer that the tree was not their responsibility without proper documentation. So the investigator is going to look for your emails, your text messages, anything written that can be verified. So that's what they did. They found that the violation could have been failure to exercise reasonable care, which is one of our big checklist items, provide accurate information, and assist the buyer in resolving the issue prior to closing. In these things, they always state applicable real estate rules or statutes violated. So in this case, it was real estate license law and commission rules regarding incompetency or negligence, and the rule that brokers must act with honesty, reasonable care, and assist clients effectively. So the board decision in this one was a pre-NCA with a $500 fine, a letter of reprimand, and 4 hours of continuing education with no credit. That was for the associate broker. And for the qualifying broker, the case was closed with an advisory letter, because the QB is always responsible. So I don't know why y'all ever want to be QBs, but after, after sitting through Mr. Sheehan's class to upgrade my license to be a QB, at the end I thought, no, never mind. So anyway, the $500 goes to the Real Estate Recovery Fund, and we don't know where that is. So we're working on that. But anyway, so in this case, what did the AB do wrong? Well, they just kind of said what, and we've all done it. We've all said, oh yeah, that's no problem, when they should have directed the buyer, don't act like an agent. Don't act like an agent unless you have that written agency agreement with your client. Tell them who to call. Don't do it for them. Tell them who to call at the city and verify, is this my tree, or is it the neighbor's tree, or is it the city's tree? They have to become educated on their own. I know y'all really like to be super helpful and find everybody inspectors and be the source of the final answer. It's not a good idea. So that was that one, the poly piping. Boy, we know what that is. And this happens, and I've seen it a lot done in the MLS, and we've all done it, and we all like to say everything's new and shiny and perfect, and it isn't. The MLS should not be a disclosure, a seller's disclosure. But anyway, this is the case of the polybutylene piping. After purchasing a property, the buyers discovered polybutylene piping despite representations that it had been replaced. Buyers purchased a property relying on the public detail report in the multiple listing system that explicitly stated polybutylene pipes have been replaced, and the seller's property disclosure indicated no known plumbing issues. A water leak led to the discovery of polybutylene piping both outside and within the home. Ouch. Both inside and within the home, contradicting prior disclosures. Buyers incurred $3,775 to replace the external piping and faced an additional estimated cost of $1,650 to replace interior pipes. So the evidence was that the listing broker relied on the seller's statements and previous listing information without independent verification. So they said in the MLS, all poly has been, and where did they come up with that? Well, the seller told them it's all been replaced. Don't believe them, because they might not know it hadn't all been replaced. No documentation was provided confirming the replacement of the polybutylene pipes. So I believe Realtor Linda here is just saying that if your seller says all the polybutylene pipes have been replaced, please get all of those invoices from the contractors who did them. And I still wouldn't say that all of it's been done, because you weren't the third head on the pillow watching the replacement. Visual inspections were performed, but latent defects like piping were not identified. So with real estate license law, the violations identified were making a substantial misrepresentation, and it demonstrated negligence and incompetency in property dealings. Again, with commission rules, failure to exercise honesty, reasonable care, and proper disclosure, misleading advertisements regarding the condition of the property. The respondent's defense was that they relied on a seller-provided information and prior listing, claimed they were unaware of the defect, and acknowledged the issue and committed to enhancing training to prevent the reoccurrence. That's always a good idea. I'll fix it. I'll get smarter. The board decision was a pre-NCA with a $1,000 fine, a letter of reprimand, and required to take a 4-hour course with no credit. So again, I've seen it. Gosh, I've been doing this 30 years. And I've said it, like brand new carpet. Well, as soon as that carpet's put in, it's not new. As soon as a water heater's put in, it's not new. So if the water heater was put in October, just say the water heater was put in October. But don't flare up your MLS description saying brand new roof, brand new water heater, no poly piping. It's not going to turn out well. The third one, early occupancy. Boy, haven't we all done that. It'll all be fine. Now, this one turned out different than some of them. This is about unauthorized early occupancy of a property by buyers prior to the closing date. The buyer's offer was submitted and accepted with an original closing date. The buyer and seller, who are friends and neighbors, they always are, discussed moving the closing date up. The seller moved out about a week before closing. The buyer conducted a walkthrough. An informal agreement for early occupancy was made between the buyer and seller, with a formal occupancy agreement drafted. The agreement was to allow garage access starting July at a certain time. Buyers inadvertently moved some items into the main living area, imagine, instead of limiting to the garage as agreed. These are fun. Buyers electronically signed the occupancy agreement after moving items in, citing lack of computer access during their move. The transaction closed earlier than the original date. Buyers began full occupancy of the home. The listing broker discovered the early occupancy and filed a complaint within days of the closing date. So they looked at the Supra lockbox access logs. They documented photos being moved into the house. Both buyer and seller maintained a cordial relationship throughout the transaction with no harm. So you had these two, the buyer and seller, they're just happy as clams. But the brokers got irritated because they had allowed this to happen. Didn't follow protocol. Yeah, Sandy and I were just talking about things like this. So the defense of this is that both buyer and seller were friends and had direct communication. No damage occurred and the seller had no complaints. Early occupancy was unintentional beyond the garage with no malicious intent. The broker claimed to be unaware of the full extent of the early occupancy. Well, I don't know how you could be aware of it unless you're staking out the house. I've heard people do that. The complaint was closed with no adverse action against respondent A or B because there was no harm to the public. They actually tried to withdraw this complaint, but you can't. Once a complaint is filed, even if everybody's just thrilled with each other, you can't take it back. We still have to hear it. The investigation still has to take place, and then it'll be like, okay, everybody's happy now, so we'll close the case. But there have been worse, obviously, experiences with early occupancy. So talk to your QB about what a good idea that would be to have people move in early. Now this is my favorite. And this is a true one. I did not sit for most of these, and especially not this one, but this one just keeps coming up. It's as a crowd favorite. Okay. A couple living in a rural area contacted a broker to list their home for sale. During the preparation process, the broker noticed that the homeowners had recently purchased 2 coffins from Costco, which they had prominently placed in their living room. Cool. Recognizing potential buyer sensitivities, the broker advised the sellers that the home would likely market better without the coffins as part of the living room decor. This suggestion upset the homeowners, leading to an ongoing disagreement between them and the broker about whether the coffins were a detriment or an asset to the home staging. No. Wow, that has never been asked in this presentation. I don't know. Despite the conflict, the property was listed and a buyer eventually made an offer. Interestingly, as part of the purchase agreement, you guessed it, the buyer specifically requested that the coffins be included in the sale. Yeah. Following the transaction, the sellers filed a complaint against the broker, claiming he was incompetent for suggesting the removal of the coffins. The sellers believed the coffins actually enhanced the property's appeal and contributed to the successful sale. I think Max Sanchez used to say something about there's a something for every saddle. After review, the case was dismissed with no findings of wrongdoing and the complaint was officially closed. But there you go. Anybody can bring a complaint for anything. And I think the value in this is that it enhances my presentation, because I've used it before. The polybutylene? Yeah. I don't know. Well, and the commission doesn't allow for, except for the case of the Real Estate Recovery Fund, it doesn't instruct complainants to be reimbursed for things. That's a civil matter. So cases can, and thanks for that question, cases can be brought to the commission before or after civil litigation has been filed. Those are going to be two separate incidences. And sometimes what happens is that a complaint is filed, the investigation is done, that investigation is public knowledge, so then they can file a civil lawsuit and use the investigative findings from the commission case in their civil litigation. But yeah, so it's two separate things. The only thing the commission can rule on are violations. So I'm going to open it up for questions, but microphone first. So this is kind of dry information for commission updates. But yeah, we're going to get a microphone for everybody. I know you don't.
Could we get a more detailed description of your staff? You listed the commission members, but you didn't list how many staff members you have.
Well, and the staff is being shared now amongst other boards. So, but we do have Christine Perea. Exactly. Yeah. Christine Perea has been and is the licensing guru. Scott Latham is the education guru, but they do cross-assist each other. Roxanne, who I'm sure you all know, is still there doing different duties. But that's the problem, is the staff now is being shared amongst the rest of the boards. So they're getting spread thin, and it makes no sense.
My quick question is the policy still the same when there is a complaint coming to the Real Estate Commission and also to the Greater Albuquerque Association of Realtors professional standards? The Real Estate Commission will always wait for the professional standards to finish before they take on that complaint. Is that correct?
With the current investigators, I'm not sure.
Okay. Because that reason that is correct, that should be correct, is because these issues come up about money can be solved in the mediation part by the realtors. And that's what I was hoping will still be in place. Thank you.
More questions? There's got to be more questions. Melody.
So Sandy Lee, you were just asking whether the commission will stay or abeyance a complaint if a complaint is filed here at the board as well? No. They will not, they don't. That has no bearing on a state case. Real Estate Commission is so separate than our code of ethics and our enforcement process. They won't, they're totally separate. Yeah, so they will not have put, they won't put a state case in abeyance if there's something happening here with your code of ethics. Separate. Thanks.
Linda, thanks for coming today.
Yeah.
I so appreciate all this education on the NMREC and RLD, which I was blissfully oblivious until recently. So you touched on a few things that I've learned more about from previous meetings. The question of the attachment between being administratively attached, certain funds that belong to the REC that no longer appear to belong to the REC. Surely it sounds like the RLD is not giving the REC the support it needs in those areas, as well as, investigations and things. Surely, since the governor appointed everybody on the NMREC, the governor is aware of what's going on? And no, she's not aware. I'm just kind of
Not
wondering.
100%. Awareness has different levels. And the governor just like any leader in a high position that is the figurehead that manages other departments, they don't have their finger on everything. She does have some awareness, I can say that much. But there are so many channels that have to be looked at in order to elicit change. I will say getting the budget was one, even though it was a strange-looking budget, it was at least presented.
You did finally get a budget.
Yeah. Presented. I mean, we did have some numbers come across our desk. But, yes, and so there are things being done to enhance her awareness of the issues. And so those channels are being opened as well. But one cannot assume that a governor ever knows everything about all of the departments. Otherwise, you wouldn't have news stories come out about regulatory agencies or other departments in government that are going through horrible things. Sometimes the governor finds out about that at the same time you do. So, but you're on the right track, yes.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you were.
Yep. She broke the mic.
Okay, I'm coming back. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Okay.
Buenos días, Jean. Qué bueno que viniste. My question for you was, I'm glad that she touched on that. I came for that. Everything you touch, I mean, is there on the online for us. But is there any news? Remember the guy that sit right there in front? When we signed the petition and all that, what has transpired? Anything happened with it? Is it going anywhere?
I'm not aware of the progress of the petition, but I can say any of you could get a hold of a legislator, whether you're in their district or not. You could get a hold of the governor's office. This is free and open society. You can get a hold of people. And sometimes it's better heard from people like yourself than from officials like us. And so I think the more people that contact, I refer to you as stakeholders. And so the more the stakeholders get involved and go through those channels, the more effective it could be. Because I think sometimes when these problems are internalized within a regulatory department with the boards and it's all kept quiet and nobody knows about it, nothing gets done because it's all quiet. But if the public starts talking about it, sometimes things can happen.
Too bad Bill McCoy left already. Okay, thank you.
He might have just gone outside, I'm not sure, yeah. So I don't know the progress because I'm not involved in the petition, so I don't know where it is right now. I do think it was delivered to somebody at RLD, but I don't know if there was ever a response.
Katie Fleur, just to piggyback on that comment, could somebody put out something for all of us to say, if we're going to contact our legislators, just a few bullet points so I can sound intelligent about what to articulate and just say, these are the things we want. And then if it's given to us like that, I know you don't want to spoon feed us, but it would be helpful.
Yeah.
And then we could push it back and do it on our own and add our own little flair to it. But just a few little points so we're all on the same message of what has to be done.
Well, it all starts with the budget, a clean and understandable budget. and appropriate staffing of investigators, and additional staff that's dedicated just to the Real Estate Commission. It's been told to us that the only reason we ever had, and he said it twice, once to me, once in the public meeting, that the only reason we've ever had dedicated real estate knowledgeable investigators is pure luck. And so, I think that's our biggest hurdle, is appropriate investigators, additional staff that are dedicated to the Real Estate Commission, and budgeting. And luck. Anybody else? I think there's one up here.
Hey, Linda, thanks for doing this.
Yes.
So we all are hearing rumors, obviously. So is the issue really that, from what I'm hearing, is that the Real Estate Commission can hold itself financially, and I heard pharmacy can. The other boards I heard are not pulling their weight for whatever reason, and that this was a financial decision, and we are subsidizing some of these other boards by reducing the staff. So we're being punished because we can hold our.
We have a lot of paying members.
Right.
Yeah.
So
we have a lot of
why,
money.
Is that kind of what drove this to begin with?
Personally speaking, so you're on a good point, and I think that's one of the issues. Yes, we could stand on our own. That takes some legislative movement to get that done. We could be autonomous, but again, everything in this system moves very slowly. Now, the 60-day session is still going on. I'm attending Friday's session just to kind of get in there and see what the talk is. There's a lot of proposed real estate bills that are on the table. I would like, the CEO is back there right now, I would like to call on for us to bring back lobbyists for the association so that we have power to go to the legislative sessions with, I know NMAR has a lobbyist, but I think it would be important for local associations to have lobbyists to kind of put pressure from that point of view. So yes. Yes?
Linda, would you please comment on the Real Estate Recovery Fund, what its condition is, and if it's not where it's supposed to be, why not?
The last part, I have no idea, but the Real Estate Recovery Fund was created so that dollars can be put into a fund for anyone harmed in a real estate transaction to an egregious extent that the commission finds cause to help them in this whatever situation they were in. So it'd be the public. And there's a minimum of $150,000 that's supposed to be held at any one time in that fund. And that's part of the budget that we're unclear about right now.
And how much is in there now?
We don't know.
Okay, why don't we know when it's our money and we're the ones that are contributing to it?
Exactly.
Hello?
Hi, Linda. Thanks again for your help in this. So where does that leave us now? So we have funds that aren't accounted for, that are commingled clearly, and are being placed elsewhere. So that's one issue. We have an issue of investigators. So we've talked about maybe separating and going on our own, which we all know it's the government. Everything's going to move slowly. Where does that leave us now? Because we clearly have some major issues that need to be addressed.
Again, I would say to talk to a legislator. Look up your address and see who your representative is, or get a hold of any legislator. I mean, that's really what they get into doing, is listening to constituents and going in there with an argument. And so they love this process, and that's what they're there for. So I do know that one legislator was contacted quite some time ago about the budget, and then subsequent to that, somebody else was contacted about the budget, and all of a sudden we had numbers, and we had been asking for a couple of years. And so but now would be the time to do it because they are in session. I'll know more on Friday once I've never sat through a legislative session. I don't know if any of you have, but I want to learn what that process is. I have been in contact with some of the Judiciary Committee about other issues, so they kind of know who I am. So hopefully I'll be able to, and I know there's another person in the room that's going to attend on Friday. So it'll be an interesting experience, but it's all about getting in touch with your representatives. That's what they're there for. Whether you voted for them or not, you got to use them because that's what their job is.
Could we have Bill address the questions now that you're back in the room, Bill? A lot of people wanting to know what the status of the petition was.
Thank you. My timing is never good. Status of the petition, 577 signatures. Thank you very much. If you haven't signed yet, you'll find copies on the GAR blog, YouTube, Facebook. All the GAR channels have that there. And on February 21st, they've given me an hour and a half to kind of wrap this up at the QB forum. So I'll be doing that, and immediately after that, submitting. I will tell you from a realtor perspective, GAR has been the most incredibly effective tool at getting this word out. I unfortunately have to tell you that NMAR and NAR have done nothing about that, which I was going to say irritates me a little, but that would be a lie. So I hope by the end of February to have 700 or 800 signatures to present directly to the governor, since I have irritated every employee at RLD. I'll flex on that. So please help. All I want our government to do is to follow their own laws. Seems really simple, but it's not. So thanks for your help. If you've already signed and haven't forwarded, please do.
So thank you, Linda, and thank you, Bill. Yeah, so for the recording, if you didn't hear it, go to your GAR blog website. Bill's presentation is there along with the petition. Bill, I am surprised that we're not getting any support from NMAR, so how can we help on that? I know that we have directors that are sitting here on the GAR level and the NMAR level. How can we get that? Because this is a statewide issue. We shouldn't have only 900 signatures on that petition when we have over, 20,000 licensees in the state? 60,000?
And I do not wish to be unfair. I'm fairly well plugged in with the Realtor organization after almost 50 years. And the NMAR legal counsel, I sent her a package, have heard nothing back about that, keep playing telephone tag with legislative chairs, et cetera. And just like RLD, I think the answer is hold the leadership at NMAR accountable for which issues they care to put their attention into. And I know it's a legislative session. Hold them accountable. That's the only answer I know. And I don't want to get ugly about it, but after the end of February, I'll get closer to at least one ugly.
Anybody else? Anybody want to know what my birthday is, or my favorite recipes? Oh, here we go. Okay.
Well, I don't really have a question per se, but I do want to speak to about the licensing process. I can tell you from my experience, I had some licensing work that needed to be done, and it did take all of 3 days, and not one, actually less than 36 hours to have the whole process taken care of. So that system works, whatever you got going. As long as you send everything you need to be sent, etc., it does happen within 3 days. That being said, the website itself is a little confusing when you want to look for the necessary forms. But what happened in the office happened very efficiently, so thank you.
Good. Yeah, we've complained a lot about the website, and some things get changed. It's not really a website, it's a series of pages within a very large website driven by Salesforce, but that's just technical stuff. It's not like the cool little, really ugly website we had before that was tons of information. But we're trying to get, again, the PDF of the rule book is supposed to be posted again. Another update, Mr. Latham from Education has something going up on the website that's going to be able to tell you all the classes that are being taught and by who. It's not going to have a calendar, which would be pretty extensive to do that, but at least you're going to be able to look up and see who teaches classes about whatever, and be able to find it and then get a hold of that instructor for their schedules. So I think that's probably going to be a great upgrade. Glad to hear it went well. Anything else? So I want to thanks for having me today, and if y'all ever have questions, I can be reached, and I'll try to help. And if I can't help, I'll tell you who to call that might be able to help. So I'm sorry you're having issues with them, but we're in this together, right? Thank you.